Captain Marcus Webb stood in the massive halls of Nexus Prime, feeling very small. The space station was huge, bigger than any Earth city. Alien beings walked past him, some tall as trees, others floating in the air. Their eyes looked at him, with curiosity, like he was some strange pet that had learned to walk on two legs. "Human Marcus Webb, you are called before the Galactic Council," announced a robot voice from the walls. Marcus had no idea why he was here. 3 days ago, he was fixing his old cargo ship on the edge space. Now he stood before the most powerful beings in the galaxy. The council chamber was enormous, with seats rising high into the ceiling. Hundreds of alien species sat watching, him from above. At the center sat the 3 most important council members. Chancellor Vex looked like a giant purple octopus in a fancy robe. His 8 arms moved constantly, showing his impatience. Next to him sat General Kor, a warrior race, with red skin and sharp teeth. He looked at Marcus like he wanted to eat him. The third was Brix, a thin creature with too many eyes counting coins on a small machine. "We are here," Chancellor Vex said in a voice that sounded like oil, "to read the will of King Thox of Valeria." Marcus knew about King Thox. Everyone in space knew about him. He owned 3 star systems full of rare metals. His death 2 weeks ago had shocked the galaxy, but Marcus could not understand why he was here. "The king's will is unusual," General Kor growled, his teeth showing. "He has left behind a daughter, Princess Kira." The name made several aliens in the crowd whisper to each other. Marcus heard words like problem and difficult and unmarriageable. He still did not understand. Brix spoke next, his many eyes blinking one by one. "The princess has been trouble for years. She refuses to marry any suitable male. She questions our ways. She speaks of crazy ideas like equality." "Equality." "Chancellor." Vex laughed and his 8 arms waved in the air. "As if servant species could be equals to their betters." The crowd laughed too. Marcus felt his face get hot. On Earth, equality was not a crazy idea. It was basic human thinking. "So," General Kor continued, "the king made a strange will. He said whoever can make his daughter behave properly will get the mining rights to all 3 star systems." Marcus's eyes went wide. Those star systems were worth more money than Earth made in 100 years. "But how do we choose who gets this chance?" Brix asked, pretending he did not already know. "The king said we should pick from all species in the galaxy. To be fair." The 3 council members looked at each other and started laughing. Their laugh was not nice. It was the laugh of bullies. "We put all species names in a box," Chancellor Vex said, holding up a golden container. "And we draw 1 name." Marcus watched as a mechanical arm reached into the box and pulled out a small card. "Human," General Kor read, and the entire chamber exploded in laughter. The sound was terrible. Hundreds of alien voices laughing at the idea that a human could solve their problem. Marcus felt his hands make fists, but he kept them at his sides. "A human." Chancellor Vex wiped tears from his eyes. "Oh, this is too good. Humans are weak. They cry over everything. They have feelings that make them stupid. They cannot even fight properly," General Kor added. "No claws, no natural weapons, just soft pink skin." "And they believe in friendship," Brix said, making the word sound like a disease. "They think being nice solves problems." The laughter got louder. Marcus looked around the chamber. Every alien face was laughing at him, at his species, at everything humans believed in. "So, human," Chancellor Vex said when the laughter died down, "do you accept this challenge? Can you tame the wild princess and claim your prize?" Before Marcus could answer, a voice cut through the chamber like a knife. "I am not a prize to be won." Everyone turned to look. Walking into the chamber was the most beautiful woman Marcus had ever seen. She was tall, with blue skin and silver hair that moved like water. Her eyes were golden and full of fire. She wore simple clothes, not the fancy robes of royalty. This was Princess Kira. "Daughter," Chancellor Vex said with fake kindness, "you will respect the will of your father." "My father was a good king," Kira said. her voice strong and clear. But even good kings make mistakes. I am not some animal to be tamed. She looked at Marcus for the first time. Her golden eyes studied his face, looking for something. Marcus felt like she could see right into his soul. Another one, she said quietly. Another male who thinks he can control me. Princess, Marcus said, surprising everyone by speaking. I don't want to control anyone. The chamber went quiet. Even Chancellor Vex stopped moving his arms. Then why are you here? Kira asked. Marcus thought for a moment. Why was he here? The money? The power? Or was it something else? Because, he said slowly, I saw how they laughed when they said your name. And I know that when powerful people laugh at someone, it usually means that person is doing something right. Princess Kira's eyes went wide. In the crowd, aliens stopped, laughing. I accept the challenge, Marcus said loudly. Not to tame anyone, but to understand why these council members are so afraid of one woman that they call her unmarriageable. The silence in the chamber was complete. For the first time in years, the Galactic Council did not know what to say. And in that silence, Princess Kira smiled. The next morning, Marcus found himself in a small room on Valeria Prime, the home planet of Princess Kira. The room was simple but clean, with a bed, a chair, and a window that looked out at the capital city. He could see tall purple towers and flying vehicles moving between them like silver fish. A guard knocked on his door. The guard was Valerian, with blue skin like the princess but darker, and he wore plain brown clothes instead of the fancy uniforms Marcus expected. The princess will see you now, the guard said quietly. But I must warn you, human, many have tried to change her mind, all have failed. What happened to them? Marcus asked. The guard smiled a little. Nothing bad. She just talked to them. Until they realized they were wrong. Most left very confused about what they believed. Marcus followed the guard through long hallways filled with beautiful art. But something felt strange. The paintings showed Valerian people, but they all looked the same. Everyone had light blue skin and wore expensive clothes. Where were the darker blue Valerians like his guard? Where were the other species that lived on this planet? They reached a garden where Princess Kira was sitting under a tree reading a book. She looked up when Marcus arrived. You came, she said, sounding surprised. Most males send servants to speak for them first. I don't have any servants, Marcus said. And I wanted to meet you myself. Kira closed her book and studied his face again. Sit, she said, pointing to the grass. Tell me, human, what do you know about Valerian marriage customs? Marcus sat down, feeling the soft grass under his hands. Not much. Just that it's supposed to be about creating strong families. Wrong, Kira said simply. Valerian marriage is about control. The male's family pays money to the female's family. Then the female must obey the male in all things. She cannot speak in public meetings. She cannot own property. She cannot even choose her own clothes. Marcus felt his stomach twist. That's not marriage, that's slavery. Kira's golden eyes went wide. You are the first male to say that word. What word? Slavery. She leaned forward. Do you know why the council calls me unmarriageable? Because you won't accept those rules? Partly. Kira stood up and began walking around the garden. But there is more. I believe all thinking beings should have equal rights. Not just light-skinned Valerians, but dark-skinned ones too. Not just Valerians, but other species that live on our worlds. She pointed to the guard who had brought Marcus. Jack there is smarter than most council members, but because his skin is darker, he can only be a guard. Never a teacher, never a leader, never anything more. Marcus looked at Jack, who nodded sadly. I have seen other worlds, Kira continued. I have seen species working together as equals, but the Galactic Council keeps everyone separate. They tell us we are better than others, and others are better than someone else. Always, a ladder with someone at the bottom, That's why they're afraid of you, Marcus said, understanding now. You want to change everything? Yes. Kira sat back down next to him. My father understood this. That is why his will was written as it was. He hoped someone would see the real problem. Meanwhile, in the Galactic Council chambers on Nexus Prime, the 3 main council members were having their own meeting. It has been 3 days, General Kor growled. Why has the human not tried to force her into marriage? Chancellor Vex waved his arms nervously. Maybe he is planning something. Humans are known for being sneaky. Or maybe he is just weak, Brick suggested, his many eyes blinking. I have reports that he sits in gardens and talks with her like they are friends. Friends, General Kor spat. What kind of conquest is friendship? They had expected Marcus to do what others had done. Some suitors had tried to impress Kira with expensive gifts. Others had demanded she obey them immediately. A few had even tried to kidnap her, thinking fear would work, but Marcus was doing something none of them had tried. He was listening. I have been thinking, Chancellor Vex said slowly. What if we made a mistake? What do you mean? Brix asked. What if humans are more dangerous than we thought? Not because they are strong, but because they are different. General Kor laughed. Different how? They have no claws, no armor, no natural weapons. No, Chancellor Vex said quietly. But they have something else. They make others want to follow them. Even their enemies sometimes switch sides. Back in the garden, Kira was showing Marcus a hidden part of the palace. Here, away from the fancy rooms, lived hundreds of servants from different species. There were small green beings with big eyes, tall thin creatures with 4 arms, and many others. These people built our palace, Kira explained. They grow our food, clean our rooms, and fix our machines. But they are paid almost nothing. They cannot leave the planet. They cannot marry who they choose. Marcus watched a small green child playing with a broken toy. The child looked hungry. This is why you will not marry, he said. Because marriage to you means joining the system that hurts these people. Finally, Kira said with a real smile. Someone understands. But I have a question, Marcus said. What if there was a way to change the system from the inside? What if marriage could be the beginning of something new, not the end of your freedom? Kira stopped walking. What do you mean? I mean, Marcus said carefully, what if we became partners instead of master and servant? What if we used your royal blood and my outside perspective to build something better? For the first time since he met her, Princess Kira looked truly surprised. And far away on Nexus Prime, Chancellor Vex was starting to realize that maybe, just maybe, they had made a very big mistake. 2 weeks had passed since Marcus arrived on Valeria Prime. Every day he and Princess Kira walked through different parts of the planet, and every day Marcus saw more problems that made his heart hurt. In the morning, they visited the mining tunnels where small creatures called diggers worked in dangerous conditions. The tunnels were dark, hot, and filled with poisonous air. Many diggers got sick and died young, but they had no choice. The law said they could only work in the mines. My great-grandfather made this law, Kira said sadly, as they watched a young digger cough up blood. He said diggers were born to dig, so that is all they should do. That's wrong, Marcus said. Everyone should have the right to choose their work. In the afternoon, they visited the learning centers where young Valerians studied. But Marcus noticed something strange. All the students had light blue skin. When he asked about it, the teacher looked nervous. Dark-skinned children go to different schools, the teacher explained quickly. They learn different things. What kind of different things? Marcus asked. How to serve better, the teacher said, not meeting his eyes. That evening, Marcus and Kira sat in her private study, looking at maps and documents. Kira had been collecting information for years, and what she showed him made Marcus angry. Look at this, she said, pointing to a paper covered in numbers. The Galactic Council takes 90% of all wealth from our 3-star systems. They leave only 10% for everyone who actually lives and works here. Where does the money go, Marcus asked. To build bigger ships for General Kor. To buy fancier clothes for Chancellor Vex? To fund Brix's trading empire? Kira's golden eyes burned with anger. While our people starve, Marcus studied the papers more carefully. His human education had taught him about economics and business. Kira, this is worse than I thought. These numbers show your people could be 10 times richer if they kept their own resources. I know, she said quietly. But how can we change it? The council has armies. They have weapons. They have power. They have those things, Marcus agreed. But they don't have what we have. What do we have? Marcus smiled. We have the truth. And we have each other. Over the next few days, Marcus and Kira began making plans. They worked with Jack the guard, who was much smarter than anyone realized. They also met with leaders from the servant species who had been secretly organizing for years. The key, Marcus explained to their small group, is not to fight the system directly. It's to show everyone a better way. How? Asked Tick, a small green creature who spoke for the diggers. We start small, Kira said. We use my royal authority to make changes in just one city. We show people that different species can work as equals. The council will try to stop us, warned Nala, a tall four-armed being who organized the house servants. Maybe, Marcus said. But they can't stop us from being successful. And when other cities see how much better life can be, they'll want the same thing. Meanwhile, on Nexus Prime, the Galactic Council was having an emergency meeting. Reports from Valeria Prime were making them very worried. The human has been there for 3 weeks, General Kor growled. He should have either succeeded or failed by now. The reports say he and the princess are working together, Brix said, his many eyes blinking rapidly. They visit factories, schools, and farms. They talk to workers and servants. Talk to servants? Chancellor Vex's 8 arms waved in shock. What could they possibly learn from servants? Maybe they are planning something, General Kor suggested. Maybe the human is smarter than we thought. Impossible, Chancellor Vex said, but he sounded less sure than before. Humans are emotional creatures. They cannot think clearly. But their spy reports told a different story. The human was not trying to control Princess Kira. Instead, they were becoming real partners. They shared ideas, made plans together, and treated each other as equals. This was something the council members could not understand. In their world, relationships were about power. Someone was always on top. Someone was always on the bottom. The idea of 2 beings working together as equals was as strange to them as flying without wings. Back on Valeria Prime, Marcus and Kira's plans were starting to work. They had convinced the governor of one small city to try their ideas. For the first time in centuries, diggers were allowed to learn other jobs. Servants were paid fair wages. Different species worked side by side in the same factories. The results were amazing. With everyone working together, the city produced twice as much wealth as before. Crime went down because people had hope. Children from all species played, together in the same schools. It's working, Kira said one evening as they watched the sunset from her balcony. People are happier. They work harder when they know they are treated fairly. Of course it's working, Marcus said. This is how humans organize things on Earth. When everyone has a chance to succeed, everyone benefits. Kira looked at him with new understanding. Your species really is different, isn't it? Maybe, Marcus said. Or maybe we just learned some lessons that others haven't learned yet. I want to marry you, Kira said suddenly. Marcus turned to look at her, surprised. Not because my father's will says I should, she continued. Not because you won some contest, but because I want to be your partner in changing this galaxy. Marcus took her blue hand in his human one. I want that too, but are you sure? Marriage to me means the council will see you as a threat. Kira smiled, and her golden eyes sparkled with determination. Let them try to stop us. They have no idea what they're up against. Far away on Nexus Prime, Chancellor Vex was waking up from a bad dream. In the dream, humans had taken over the galaxy, not through war, but by making everyone want to join them. He was starting to think maybe it wasn't just a dream. The wedding announcement came on. A Tuesday morning that changed everything. Princess Kira stood before the planetary communication system, wearing a simple white dress instead of royal robes. Marcus stood beside her in his plain human clothes. Behind them stood representatives from every species on Valeria Prime, diggers, servants, guards, and nobles all together. People of the galaxy, Kira began, her voice calm and strong. I announce my marriage to Captain Marcus Webb of Earth. But this is not just a marriage. This is the beginning of a new way of life. On Nexus Prime, Chancellor Vex nearly fell off his chair. His 8 arms grabbed at the communication controls, trying to block the signal, but it was too late. The message was already spreading across 1,000 worlds. We have seen what happens when all beings work as equals, Kira continued. Our test city of New Hope has doubled its wealth in just 1 month. Crime has disappeared. Children learn together regardless of their species or skin, color. Workers choose their own jobs and earn fair wages. General Kor smashed his fist on the table, cracking the metal surface. This is disaster. She's giving servants ideas. And we invite all worlds to join us, Marcus said, stepping forward. Not as rulers and servants, but as partners building something better together. Brix's many eyes were spinning like wheels. The economic reports from New Hope, they can't be real. No society works that way. But the reports were real. Within hours of the announcement, requests for information poured in from hundreds of worlds. Species that had been oppressed for centuries suddenly saw hope. Chancellor Vex activated his emergency powers. We must stop this immediately. General Kor, prepare the fleet. To attack Valeria Prime, General Kor asked. If necessary. Chancellor Vex's voice was cold as space. We cannot allow this rebellion to spread. But there was a problem. When General Kor tried to order his ships to move, half of his captains refused. Captain Rex, a green-skinned warrior from the Outer Rim, sent a message that shocked everyone. I will not attack people who are trying to live as equals. My own species has suffered too long under council rule. Captain Yola, whose people had been forced to work in dangerous factories, sent a similar message. If the humans and Valerians can build a better way, maybe we can too. Within days, 12 ship captains had resigned from the council fleet. Others began asking questions about why they were fighting to keep some species as servants. This is impossible, General Kor raged. Military discipline is breaking down because of one human. It's not just one human anymore, Brix said quietly, reading reports from his spy network. 17 worlds have sent representatives to Valeria Prime. They want to learn about the partnership system. Chancellor Vex felt panic rising in his chest. The galaxy he had controlled for decades was falling apart because of ideas. Not weapons, not armies, just ideas about fairness and equality. Meanwhile, on Valeria Prime, Marcus and Kira were busier than they had ever been. Every day brought new visitors, leaders, workers, families, all wanting to see how the partnership system worked. We need more teachers, Kira said as they walked through New Hope. The city had grown from 50,000 beings to over 200,000 in just weeks. And more housing, Marcus added, watching construction crews that included every species working side by side. But look at them work. When people have hope, they can build anything. Jack, who was now the city's first multi-species police chief, ran up to them. Princess Captain, we have a problem. Council ships are gathering at the system border. Marcus and Kira looked at each other. They had known this day would come. How many ships? Marcus asked. 50 warships, Jack said. But here's the strange thing. 20 of our own Valerian ships have moved to block them. Our ships are protecting us? Kira asked in surprise. It gets better, Jack smiled. Ships from the Digger Homeworld and the Servant Alliance are coming, too. They say they won't let the Council destroy what we're building here. That evening, Marcus stood on the palace balcony looking up at the stars. Kira joined him, and together they watched dozens of lights moving across the sky, ships from across the galaxy coming to help protect their small experiment in equality. Are you scared? Kira asked. Terrified, Marcus admitted, but also proud. Look what we started with, just one simple idea. What idea? That every thinking being deserves respect. On Nexus Prime, Chancellor Vex was having the worst day of his long life. His emergency session had been a disaster. Half the council members had walked out when he suggested bombing Valeria Prime. Others had demanded to know why equality was such a threat. Maybe, said Councillor Fenn, an elderly being whose species had been neutral for centuries, we should ask ourselves why so many beings want to join them instead of us. Because they're naive, Chancellor Vex snapped. They don't understand. That someone must be in charge. But what if they're right? Fenn asked quietly. What if working together is better than some ruling others? Chancellor Vex stared at the old councillor. The idea was so alien to him that he couldn't even process it properly. General Kor burst into the chamber. Chancellor, we have lost contact. With 30 more ships. Their captains say they are joining the partnership fleet around Valeria Prime. How many ships do we have left? Brix asked. Maybe 20. General Kor said quietly. And half of those are asking questions about their orders? Chancellor Vex looked around the nearly empty council chamber. For the first time in his life, he was losing control, and he didn't understand why. The answer was actually simple, though he couldn't see it. For centuries, the council had ruled through fear and force. But Marcus and Kira had shown the galaxy something more powerful than fear. They had shown them hope. And hope, once released, was very hard to put back in its cage. 6 months after the wedding announcement, the galaxy looked completely different. Marcus stood in what used to be the Galactic Council chambers, but now it was called the Partnership Assembly. Instead of high seats where powerful beings looked down on others, there were circular tables where representatives from all species sat as equals. The vote is complete, announced Elder Fenn, who had become the Assembly's first elected speaker. The Mining Rights Act passes. All species will share equally in the wealth from their home systems. The cheers filled the chamber. Marcus watched as diggers hugged Valyrians, as servants shook hands with former nobles, as beings who had been enemies for centuries celebrated together. Kira, now 6 months pregnant with their first child, squeezed his hand. Can you believe it? We actually did it. We all did it, Marcus corrected. Every being who chose hope over fear. The transformation had not been easy. There had been battles, both in space and in council chambers. General Kor had tried 3 times to attack partnership worlds, but each time more of his own ships had switched sides. Finally, with only 5 ships left, he had surrendered. Chancellor Vex had been harder to defeat. He had used legal tricks, bribery, and propaganda to try to stop the partnership movement. But when 70% of all galactic worlds voted to leave the old council system, even he had to accept reality. Brix had been the smartest of the 3. When he saw which way things were going, he had offered to help design the new economic system. His knowledge of galactic trade had been useful, though he now worked for fair wages instead of stolen profits. Attention Assembly, Elder Fenn called. We have a special presentation today. Captain Webb and Princess Kira will show us the latest report from the partnership worlds. Marcus and Kira walked to the center of the chamber. Marcus activated a holographic display that showed statistics from across the galaxy. In just 6 months, Marcus began, crime on partnership worlds has dropped by 80%. When people have hope and fair opportunities, they don't need to steal or fight. Education levels have tripled, Kira added. When all children can learn together, they all become smarter and more creative. The hologram showed images of mixed-species schools, where young diggers learned mathematics alongside Valerian children, where human kids played with 4-armed youngsters from distant worlds. Economic production is up by 200%, Marcus continued. It turns out that when workers keep fair wages for their labor, they work much harder and make better products. But the most important change, Kira said with a smile, is something we cannot measure with numbers. For the first time in galactic history, children of all species are growing up as friends instead of as rulers and servants. The assembly erupted in applause, but Marcus raised his hand for quiet. We still have challenges, he said honestly. Some worlds have not joined the partnership yet. There are still places where old systems of oppression continue. And we are still learning how to make equality work on such a large scale. That's why we need everyone's help, Kira added. Humans didn't invent fairness. Every species has beings who believe in treating others with respect. We just need to work together to make it happen everywhere. After the assembly session, Marcus and Kira walked through the station's new community areas. Where once only elite species had been allowed, now families from every world in the galaxy lived, worked, and played together. They stopped at a playground where their future child would someday play. Human children ran around with young aliens of every shape and size. Parents from different worlds chatted while watching their kids, sharing stories and recipes and jokes that crossed species barriers. Look, Kira pointed to a small digger child, teaching a young Valerian how to build with blocks. 6 months ago, those two species were not allowed to even speak to each other. And now they're best friends, Marcus said, putting his arm around his wife. A familiar voice called their names. They turned to see Jack approaching with a data pad in his hands. The final report from the old council territories, Jack said. He was now the partnership's head of security, protecting all species equally. The last 3 council loyalist worlds have voted to join us. Even General Kor's homeworld? Kira asked. Especially them, Jack smiled. It seems the people there were tired of sending their children to fight wars for other people's profits. Marcus took the data pad and looked at the numbers. 100%. Every inhabited world in the galaxy had chosen partnership over domination. There's more good news, Jack continued. The exploration ships have made contact with 3 new species beyond our galaxy's edge. And guess what their first question was? What? Kira asked. They wanted to know if they could join the Partnership Alliance. Word about our system is spreading to other galaxies. As the sun set over the station, Marcus and Kira stood at their apartment window, looking out at the stars. Ships from hundreds of worlds moved peacefully through space, carrying goods, knowledge, and families to new homes across the galaxy. Do you ever miss the old days? Kira asked. When life was simpler? Marcus thought about his small cargo ship, his quiet life on the edge of space before all this began. Then he felt his unborn child kick in Kira's belly, and he smiled. No, he said. Simple isn't always better. Besides, our child will grow up in a galaxy where they can be friends with anyone, work any job, and dream any dream. That's worth all the complications. Kira leaned against him, her blue skin warm against his human arm. The council members used to laugh at humans. They said you were too emotional, too weak, too focused on friendship. Maybe they were right, Marcus said. Maybe humans are too emotional. Maybe we do focus too much on friendship. And maybe, Kira said softly, that's exactly what the galaxy needed. Far below them, in what used to be the council prison levels, 3 former rulers sat in comfortable rooms, learning about the new galaxy they had helped create. They were not prisoners. The partnership didn't believe in revenge, but they were required to attend daily classes about equality, cooperation, and respect. Chancellor Vex was slowly beginning to understand that ruling through fear had been harder than leading through hope. General Kor was discovering that peace was more challenging than war, but also more rewarding. And Brix had found that honest trade made him feel better than stolen profits ever had. The galaxy laughed no more at humans. Instead, beings across the stars told stories to their children about the species that had shown them a better way to live. And in those stories, the greatest human strength was not their technology or their weapons. It was their simple belief that everyone deserved a chance to be happy.